So I'm Arab, as most of my subscribers know, and sometimes other Arab come up to me and ask, like, ya Abdu, why do Arab only ever seem to play Call of Duty and FIFA? Don't they realize how many other kinds of games exist? Now obviously there are Arab who play lots of different games, but when I used to live in Kuwait, it's true that 99% of the people around me were playing the obvious shooters and sports games. I live in Dearborn, Michigan now, the city with the highest concentration of Arab outside the Middle East, and it's still mostly true. So I thought about it for a while. Why is it that a lot of mainstream titles never seem to crack our bubble, even as they're selling tens of millions of copies worldwide? Is it really just that we're uninterested in games more complicated than shoot man with gun, or put ball in net? Well, I talked it out with a friend, and I think I have an actual answer, at least as far as Arab living in the Arab world goes. Here's the thing, when you look at the landscape of mainstream gaming nowadays, what do you see? You see cinematic games where the story and dialogue are heavily emphasized, as seen with a lot of Sony's exclusives. You see what I've come to call small text games. You know, games where the only objective seems to be grinding for loot with tiny little numbers and buffs, where you have to shove your face against the TV to read what they do. This would be your Destiny style of game. Point is, there aren't many games in the AAA gaming sphere that focus on a very pure gameplay experience. There are a few, like Fortnite or Devil May Cry 5 or Crash 4, but for the most part, even games like Dark Souls lean pretty heavily on you being able to read text and gear up accordingly. Why do I bring all this up? Well, there's an issue that's talked about a lot in other non-English speaking communities, but I've never actually seen brought up for Arab: localization. See, I went through the top 50 PS4 games on Metacritic and put together a list of all the games that have some sort of Arabic language option, whether it be sub or dub. The final result of this count, assuming I didn't miscount, 9 out of 50 had one. These games rely so heavily on context and your ability to understand what's going on that if you don't, then all you have left are mediocre shooters or mediocre stealth games. What's especially confusing for me is that there are studios that did have Arab subs for some games, but not for all of them. If EA got some people to do Battlefield 1, why not Titanfall 2? There's perhaps a cyclical loop going on here. You know, these games don't get Arabic subs, so Arab don't buy them. Publishers decide Arab don't like their games, so they don't bother with the subs, and therefore we don't buy them, and the cycle goes on. It's a shame that Nintendo never caught on that much in the Arab world, at least when I was living there. Their games are perfectly geared towards those who want a more pure gaming experience where they don't have to read so much, and I could see games like Mario Odyssey doing very well over there if we had had more of an investment in the series. I actually have a video on my channel explaining why Sony did so much better than Nintendo and Microsoft among Arab. Why not take a look at that since you're here? But yeah, I feel publishers are missing out on a big untapped market within Arab countries, and I'm not sure why. Yes, localization isn't cheap, but with the ridiculous budget some of these games have, you'd think they could afford to invest some into potentially cracking a market that has remained out of reach for a while now. There are workarounds, of course. At least on PC, you could get into the modding scene to find some Arab sub options. Hell, you could even make some if you're tech savvy. You'd probably be considered a hero in some communities. We could also draw a little more attention to the indie market, where there are a lot more games that focus on the core gameplay instead of talking at you for 30 hours. But most importantly, as I said in a previous video, it always helps to actually get into the industry. Ubisoft, for all the shit I give them, is a very diverse company, which allows them to put their games out in so many different languages. There's no reason we can't break into other companies and start making the argument that there is a market for Arabic language options if they would only put the effort in. Or you could be like me and just make videos on YouTube vaguely pointing the problem out. It's as much as I have the skills to do anyway. But yeah, shorter video, but I thought it was a topic very few people talk about, so I figured I'd throw it out there. Anyway, if you're interested in more Arab-related gaming content, feel free to subscribe. Leave a comment and let me know if this is something you actually give a shit about, or if you just prefer playing COD after all. And I'll see you all next time. Mas salama.